After losing game 1, Flash Wolves have bounced back with 2 dominant wins and are now looking to make their return to the MSI group stage.
They certainly are, and back-to-back stomps coming through for the Flash Wolves. That game in particular looked like they led from start to finish. Massive CS lane accrued in a 1v1 in the mid lane, even though a very good ganking jungler coming out of Vega Squadron. Bottom lane was a wash. 2v2 kills, plus gank assistant coming down there as well from Bugi. Just anywhere they went, it looked like they had a position of power, which means that the ball's now in Vega's court. What do they do to change this up? Is it a side selection thing? Is it going to be a drafting change? Because right now, what they are doing is not working against a dominant Flash Wolf lineup.
That is the question, really, isn't it? How do you alter things? Or do you just play the same and hope that maybe you can play it a little bit better this time? It's always a very difficult thing to do, but I'm sure Vega have confidence in themselves.
Yeah, and that's something that sometimes we overlook. Every now and again when you get blown out, you've just played your best comp in the best way you can play it, and the other team is just better than you. Yep. So sometimes there isn't an answer for what's being thrown at you. Flash Wolves have very skilled players. They also play the map in a very solid and structured way, which means that if you can't get early advantages, if you can't push them off the objective-focused game that they want to run with, there's very little avenues to get back into the game.
And sometimes you do just have to say, hey, we met a better team on the day. It's a learning experience for us. We can take that learning back into the LCL and then hopefully come back for Worlds in 6 months' time and come and challenge once again. Now, we do have a few changes, or one change in the pick ban phase. Vega on the red side have gone Kalista into a Kali bounce.
Yeah, and this is a coach's job, right? When you're in that kind of slug of they're outperforming us, they're beating us to positions, they're beating us in lane. We need an adaptation. That's where you're coaching stuff. That's when Envy's job becomes difficult. You need to generate some lead. You need to get some volatility in. And I love the adaptation here. They've gone with, let's deny the strongest solo lanes. We need better counter picks. We don't have anything for these two. They've played it, 3 times now, 2 times in the case of the Akali. Let's get rid of it, start from scratch, see what we can rebuild.
And we'll see where Flash Wolves go, because now the Nocturne and the Jarvan are available for them if they want it. It's still the Rek'Sai though. Bugi has had an incredible performance on that so far, and will be picking it up once again.
Yeah, I believe third game on Rek'Sai, game 1 lost where he tried to steal out the Elder Drake. Game 2 dominant performance, and now going to be picking it up again in game 4. Was also first rotation from Vega, so obviously high priority from both teams on this pick.
Has been high priority throughout the entire tournament as well. Could be a little bit of something interesting here as the Morgana is hovered by Vega. Could be bot, could be mid, could be support, could go anywhere.
Good negative pick in the mid lane as well. In the case that it just pushes out, doesn't lose lane too spectacularly, and is a very good team fight. Full AP Morgana, Black Shield, plus the ultimate provides a ton of utility. Also, we've seen potentially can be played by Gadget in the bottom lane if they want to run, something a little bit cheesier like Morgana Pike. Or as you mentioned, if Santos wants to play it, something like Nautilus goes support, is a very good denial pick there as well.
We'll see where Vega go for their second pick here, and we'll see if Flash Wolves decide that they want to go for these solo lane picks in the first phase as well.
Yeah, so far, what we've seen in this draft as Shen's picked up is a lot more global flavor, probably going to be a teleport run on Morgana if it is in the 80 carry or mid lane position. And this is a lot more of what we saw from Flash Wolves domestically. Take a good 80 carry, take a good support here, would expect something like Galio to come out or Tahm Kench to match the global of Shen, and then just leave our solo laners. Our 2 preferred solo laners gone. They can't hit the champion pool much more because we haven't shown them anything else.
And Vega have actually gone back to something that worked so well for them earlier on. Get the Aatrox. Now you can ban out counters to the Aatrox in the second phase, and it makes it so much easier for Vega to find a good top matchup.
Certainly could be the case, and see whether they go towards something like a Jace or Aurelia. They've already banned away the Aurelia on the side of Flash Wolves, so really only Jace is the last lane dominant top laner up and available. Would like to see that be banned away.
All right, well done. Good prediction on the day there, Spawn. You've,
1 of 1.
1 of 1 so far today. Hey, 100% win record.
Yeah, on the flip side for Flash Wolves, I'm expecting them to play a push and control mage, so I expect them to try and hit away either, I was going to say top or mid or jungle champion pool right now. I think that hitting jungle is kind of interesting because you have Rek'Sai and the strongest early game jungler, so it doesn't do all that much for me unless you're willing to take away something super early game focused like a Xiao. I would rather see them hit something that they think is going to be played into the control mages, something like a Corki that scales incredibly well on the side of Vega. Saying that could always be that mid lane Morgana, and that's when 80 carry or whatever the heck, maybe a Heimerdinger ban. Gadget doesn't play AD carries, that's why I'm fishing for another relevant ban down there. Maybe Heimer is just a good denial pick at this stage.
I think Heimer would be a good ban just because it is difficult to play into, but you do have the Varus, Tahm, Kench, right? So it's relatively good lane in that bottom side of the map. We will see where Flash Wolves go. Still a lot of options available for them, and I wouldn't be surprised if we just see them play a little bit more of a conventional Flash Wolf style here, you know? You can take some early skirmishes, maybe get something like the Urgot up towards the top side, maybe get something like Vladimir in the mid lane as well, just things that we tend to see from Flash.
Yeah, this is the ban that FLICKR was actually calling for in Game 2 to be picked up by AHaHaCiK. Take away the Kindred. If you're going to play team fight, Kindred is one of the best junglers to have because it gives you that second shot at getting it right. Also can absorb some key ultimates, something like Bugi's Rek'Sai ultimate.
Will be the Lee Sin locked in here for AHaHaCiK. Has played that once this tournament, won on it as well. Gives you a little bit more aggression. You can go for some of those early plays, which is what we want to see from Vega.
Yeah, now this composition will give away whether it's a 4-1 or a 1-3-1. Azir certainly points further to the 4-1. Whilst you can play 1-3-1 in a lot of compositions, I was going to say with maybe an Orianna, some other form of control mage, this is one of Rather's most picked champions. Azir just really struggles in the side lane, especially given the fact that they've potentially held on to a mid lane pick for last. Something like a LeBlanc can come out and really punish that. So I prefer the Orianna. Certainly buys enough time for, you know, ShiauC as well as Betty to be able to rotate down there. And talking about 1-3-1 would be remiss to not mention Ryze. The best top laner and mid laner, I feel, in a 1-3-1 comp as the game progresses. Scales incredibly well, has gank assist, as well as the fact that it's so hard to kill and tie down in that side lane.
It's the first time we've actually seen Hanabi play the Ryze if he locks it in, and actually haven't seen Rather play it either during the regular season, so not a very common pick for the Flash Wolves. It will be Hanabi taking it up towards the top lane. Final pick was Syndra for Nomanz.
Yeah, old school counter pick coming out against the Orianna. If you're able to get ahead in lane, can be very oppressive as the Orianna, especially given the fact that, you know, you're running into Lee Sin. This is probably, as far as mid-jungle 2v2 goes, the hardest lane to navigate. You've got to Lee Sin with all of his mobility, with the CC. You've got Syndra there with the gank assist, with the burst damage. And we are seeing Gadget go back towards a different pick.
Yeah.
The worry here now is, where does the AD damage come from? Unless this Aatrox is significantly ahead, going to be hard to run in with any form of physical damage. It means that team fights do get progressively harder as the game goes on.
I mean, Boss was very, very strong the last time we saw this Aatrox, and if you're playing up against a 1-3-1, like, how much can you actually fight Flash Wolves if you get past that 25-30 minute mark? Aren't you looking for fights earlier on?
Yeah, it certainly could be the case, and I'm certainly not taking anything away from that. However, if you are running Tahm, Kench, Orianna, Ryze, you always have the option to go back to team fights as well. Orianna, great team fighter. Ryze can also be a great team fighter in the right circumstances. So whilst I expect at some point in this game for Flash Wolves to break up the map, try and use their superior control and vision to be able to take key objectives, I do think that, you know, they still have the ability to throw down if 10 people are on the same screen.
Definitely do. With Vega Squadron, last chance saloon for them for today at least. Of course, they play up against Fengvu Buffalo. If they lose this series in our matchup tomorrow, the winner of that will go through to the MSI main stage. Flash Wolves have been there 3 times before, and they're trying to make it lucky number 4. They will with a victory in this game. And
what we've seen so far in this series, Medic, is a team that controlled the early games, controls the mid and the late as well, whilst Vega did it in a much more slow, drawn-out fashion. It was a clean victory the first time around. Flash Wolves in the last 2 games have been able to generate massive gold leads. And now the pressure comes to Vega. Can they get something rolling anywhere on Summoner's Rift?
I do like that phrase as well, the pressure comes to Vega, because it almost felt like that's the story of this series. If you look back at Game 1, the game, like, you came into the series thinking Flash Wolves are going to 3-0. You think they're the most dominant team out of the 2, and I'll hold this thought for a second. Betty's going to back off. And I'm sure Vega came in with that mentality as well. Oh, Betty spots out the Shen, puts a ward down, binding doesn't connect. I'm sure Vega came in thinking, you know, this is just practice. We're probably going to lose to the Flash Wolves, probably going to get 3-0'd. And then they started winning. And then they started dominating the Flash Wolves. And after about the 30-minute mark in that Game 1, I think you started to see the nerves creep in. I think you started seeing a little bit of tentativeness, a little bit of over-eagerness from the team. And maybe now that they've been pushed back so many times so often, Vega will have a few less nerves and be a little bit more laissez-faire with their gameplay.
It can always go that way, right? When you back is against the wall, you either play scared or you play like you have nothing to lose. And I would like to see the latter come out, just send a message into tomorrow's game. Do want to point out some key rune choices right now. Double Spellbook going to be picked up on the side of Flash Wolves. That is going to be a Spellbook Orianna mid lane, being able to swap into the Cleanse to avoid some ganks will be nice as the game progresses. It's going to be Glacial Augment picked up for the Morgana in the mid lane. So we're expecting Hextech KLP into something like the Spooky Ghost with Twin Shadows coming out there as well. Does lend itself to more gank setup. And the fact that they've already got CC in both members of the bottom lane does mean that if Tahm Kench steps a little bit too far forward, they will take him down.
Until Gadget levels up that W, though, they are just going to get pushed in towards this bottom lane. Betty and ShiauC able to force Santos and Gadget down underneath their tower. Usually you look for something like the Lost Chapter first on the Morgana, and then level up that Tormented Soil, and you can counter-push those waves.
This has been scouted out here, Medic. You can see AHaHaCiK has stepped over wards to be able to get into this location. Has to back away.
On his way up, you can see as well, Hanabi quicker on the react from that top lane, had the push in the wave, and AHaHaCiK's just going to have to back away. You can't stay around where you don't know where Ryze is. Bugi not doing the blue buff though, and AHaHaCiK maybe looking for a gank towards mid, as rather has been chunked out just a little bit.
Probably wants a healthier, quicker level 3. Great flash.
Oh, yeah.
Great flash.
Indeed it was.
That was probably a guaranteed kill coming across there. You have so much damage coming out of the Electrocute. You don't have heal available. You don't have cleanse, something like a barrier. So has to burn the flash early. Even if you do survive, you have to immediately probably recall and burn teleport to get back into the lane. So you just ultimately will lose another summoner spell regardless and not have any ability to force in. And you can see that AHaHaCiK getting busy one more time on Summoner's Rift.
Still only level 2, trying to control that early game. He who controls the early game controls the entire matchup, but ShiauC and Betty able to react, know that AHaHaCiK could be on that bottom side of the map. And now AHaHaCiK will just have to retreat back in towards his jungle.
And closer to what we saw game number 1. The ability to get busy in the early game. That time it was on the Sejuani. Did catch up ultimately in farm, but stalking around the lanes, trying to generate any form of advantage for his team.
He's trying to keep track of Bugi there as well. He popped out a Sonic Wave towards the Krug, so you know Bugi's been down towards that bottom side of the map. Now, does just need to get some of his own jungle. You know, at some point you start falling too far behind in XP.
And you can see Bugi goes for the recross and goes towards the Raptor camp, so immediately pings out the camps that are still up and available for AHaHaCiK as well.
Nice little steal away there by Nomanz, though. Stops Bugi from getting all of that extra gold from the large Raptor. And relatively even. Keeping track of the junglers is so important in these early games. Lots of pings actually coming out towards the top side as well from Hanabi, showing Bugi that there's a lot of wards.
Ooh. And a really nice donation for this early in the game. Rek'Sai going to sacrifice some experience to be able to get rather ahead. The fact that this is a summoner spell less Orianna that has been given that blue buff at only 4.5 minutes into the game does mean that the push is going to be quite oppressive into Nomanz, but rather we'll have to look to navigate some ganks, you feel, as this laning phase progresses.
So how much does this actually give rather in the lane? Because like you can spam out, you can push the wave in, but what does that actually allow Flash Wolves to do?
So what you hope it allows Flash Wolves to do is access the river first and be able to fight for things like Scuttle Crabs, early dragons, and also, in the long run, relieve a lot of kill threat that would be mid lane. Because if you're making Nomanz play against the wave as opposed to playing against the Orianna, a lot of that kill threat goes down. The chunk isn't going to be available. Lee Sin probably not going to 100 and 0 without ultimate available, which is still a whiles away, is only level 4. So just turns what would have been a weak laning phase into a pushing and, you know, vision control advantage.
Yeah, you already talked about the power of the mid-jungle 2v2. If you can get your mid ahead, get that extra experience, get that extra push, extra pressure, makes it a lot harder for you.
Yeah, and not only that, the two wards that are around mid lane at the moment, the one right there and this spied on the Raptor camp as well, means that they have a side of the lane to push towards. Even without the summoner spells available, if you just play towards top lane, you're going to be able to know if the gank is coming, you know, be able to navigate yourself around that even with no summoner spells. So really like how they set up rather for success here. Face check coming out.
And AHaHaCiK's face checked into there by Bugi. Lands the Unburrow. Sonic Wave Resonating Strike combo comes out, but the damage from Bugi is pretty strong. Rather, rotating up first because he's got that push in the mid lane and it all comes together, Spawn.
And you can see AHaHaCiK wants to get back involved in the play. Ultimate is available now for Nomanz.
And AHaHaCiK still only level 4 though, can't really get in towards Rather will be able to force him away, and Nomanz once again is caught underneath his tower. There has been a bit of a CS lead developing down towards the bottom side of the map, as well as Betty and ShiauC continue to push in Gadget and Santos, and because of that, you know, you're looking at a 20 farm difference between Gadget and Betty.
And honestly, just CS advantages everywhere. Mid lane due to that blue buff. Ooh, ShiauC.
That's a little bit of a cheeky sidestep.
Yeah, it certainly was. Just battling Santa's there in the bottom lane. Also, the fact that Hanabi was able to recall, not use teleport, and still maintain a CS advantage. Obviously now replicated for boss, but you can see about a creep wave advantage as well in the top lane. Flash Wolves just showing their mastery over this stage of the game.
Yeah, getting the plates down in the bottom lane as well means they're about 2,000 gold ahead, or 1,500 at the moment. Now, what we usually see from Flash Wolves here is they go for these neutral objectives. With 7 minutes in, there's a Mountain Drake down towards that bottom side for them. They have pushing mid, they have pushing bot.
They've got double control wards in bottom river. You can see exactly where they want to play around. At the same time, Hanabi has his weak pink ward as well. That means he's allowed to push up. If no CC register is going to be able to use that ultimate to escape. And this is where Vega did a very good job in game number 1 of throwing the curveball. They matched the Rift Herald. They were able to take the first drag, and they really upset the pace at which Flash Wolves wanted to play the game. Now, unfortunately for Vega, it looks like this game is following a very predictive and deliberate strategy. That blue buff handover was a very deliberate take. You could see that when Bugi got invaded, he didn't take the blue buff. He went back to his wolf camp. This is obviously a predetermined strategy that they like to implement with the Orianna.
Oh, Scatter the Weak is going to land. There's the Unleashed power as well, but the exhaust comes out. Shockwave used, and AHaHaCiK not underneath the tower and can't really do too much more. Tahm Kench on his way up with the Abyssal Voyage. Bugi there as well. Abyssal Voyage was cancelled. Santos goes in with the taunt, but now he's the one to be caught out. ShiauC trading. There's the teleport in the mid lane as an AHaHaCiK, and Nomanz will get the first kill. Santos so low. Betty flashes in. 1-for-1 trade across the map now. Boss did TP into mid, so his TP is down, and Hanabi did not join that fight in mid lane.
Great job from Vega Squadron to be able to upset the mid lane. We've talked about this so much. Boss now looking for the flank, forcing away. Nomanz needs to get an advantage in this 1v1, and the whole of the team is helping out and ensuring that can happen.
Well, you said we wanted to see Vega upset the apple cart a bit, make a reactive play, make a proactive, not reactive play, sorry, against Flash Wolves. And that's what they did with this mid lane fight.
Yeah, they certainly did, and we mentioned the push. No safe side right now, playing towards the neutral part of the lane. We'll have to spend summoner spells again. Looks like it's going to turn, but great job from Santos. Looks like he burnt a flash to cancel that, able to get the taunt down. And you mentioned that Hanabi not looking to join, did use a realm hop. You know, the one station take wasn't enough to get him into the midst of that team fight. And taking another look at Santos, wasn't actually the flash, it was just the ignite.
Oh, ignite.
Any damage stops it now.
Any damage.
And you can see that that will mean that he falls down, but certainly better than being wiped mid lane if the duo was able to join.
Betty did have to burn Flash to get him in the end as well, so that's both those summoners down in the bottom lane, and AHaHaCiK is trying to capitalize on that. Teleport in from Hanabi. Black Shield down, it's a 3v3 for the moment. Hanabi comes in, knocked airborne straight away. Gadget, though, is caught out, and it's 2 kills on the board for Flash Wolves. A 1,500 gold lead. Flash Wolves in control of this game.
And some mistimed aggression. We already mentioned the fact that Boss had to use his teleport to get into the mid lane. It was a great job of turning that game. But then you have to play weak side bottom lane. You have to wait for Santos' ult to become available. Try and attack the Ryze, who still has the global. Instead, they fight the bottom side of the map. They fight the wrong side of the map where they don't have any vision set up. Once again, costs them about 2,000 gold, costs them that first Drake of the game. Control starting to go back towards the flash.
And when you know you're going to be at a man disadvantage, or you could be at a man disadvantage, your map is weak. That side of the map is where you cannot play, and Vega Squadron fell into the trap that we have talked about so many times this tournament.
And an AHaHaCiK, and we'll hold that thought actually. So this is what we're talking about. Flash forward when you don't have teleport, and no way to stop Ryze's teleport in the top lane. More importantly, you can see Boss isn't even in that lane. So now it's an uneven fight. Went probably as well as it could have there with a nice kick coming across from an AHaHaCiK, but unfortunately not going to be enough to stop kills going across, not going to be enough to stop that drag.
Yeah, and because Boss was back in base, he doesn't even get an advantage in the top lane out of it. You have 4 plates to 5, only that extra plate. You're equal on CS. Hanabi gets a kill, and now you can see after taking the dragon, what do Flash Wolves do? It's textbook. They go for Rift Herald.
But they are also maybe throwing a bit of curveball. They're acting with the Tahm Kench that they want to go for this play, trying to bait Gadget into overextending, and they have the Ryze ultimate in bottom lane. Also, if this doesn't work out, they can just walk straight back upriver. Ryze has the semi-global to be able to join the fray. Really like the lane swap that came across from Flash Wolves there.
Yeah, set up for a possible play, weren't able to enact it, but they don't lose anything out of it because of how they established.
And now they're playing on the side of the map that does have the objective. Yep. Whilst there is vision control on top side, now that you've got superior numbers, you can walk in as a 4-man unit, and you can just look to take all of that away. Stand United, however, is available for Shen. So they do have a way to join this fight and make it equal numbers. Hanabi's ultimate is not going to be that far range at only level 9.
Question is how greedy you want to be if you are Flash Wolves. Do you want to just hard force for these objectives when you know you have the lead, or you're willing to be a bit more patient? You'll get towards that Luden's complete on towards the Orianna, get your first item on Hanabi as well, that Seraph's building up, because right now you're in a very strong position. You don't really need to be forcing the tempo too much. Nomanz caught out with a shockwave. A kick comes back from AHaHaCiK there. Bessie gobbled up by ShiauC. Spat out back towards the tower. The chain of corruption did land onto AHaHaCiK, locking him in place. Boss with the Infernal Chains can't quite pull back Betty. And now the World Ender about to time out. Boss flashes away. Bugi on the chase. Doesn't have the flash yet, but still looking for the knockup. And Boss will delay with the Darkin Blade. Betty will take him out. And Flash Wolves once again find a kill from an AHaHaCiK gang.
And they're trying to force plays on the side of the map where they don't have numbers, which means that if anything goes wrong, if they're not able to execute immediately, they just die. Back-to-back plays. You can argue Santos could have joined there.
Trying to make the play onto Hanabi here underneath the tower. Pretty good tower dive there by Vega Squadron.
Much better execution of a play, you know, with Black Shield not going to be able to get the root out. And you can see AHaHaCiK looking for Betty here as well.
Jumps forward with the safeguard, hits the Sonic Wave chase onto Betty. Betty doesn't really have anywhere to get out and it's shut down. Betty overextended there, shouldn't have been there by himself.
And you can see that with that pick in the top lane, with no presence in the mid lane for Radha, that might be the Rift Herald falling across, and AHaHaCiK could have continued that leash, still has Santos' ultimate to be able to join the fight. Instead, they slow the pace of the game down. This is when Vega Squadron has looked good. When they take their play, they reset and they look for something else.
Don't need to be continually making those desperate plays. Now, AHaHaCiK didn't have the smite at the time, which is why I think he re-leashed on that Rift Herald. Didn't want to get in a smite fight with Bugi, but now up towards this top side, trying to play towards the strong side of the map. Gadget has teleport, Betty has it as well, and you can see Betty coming down towards this bottom lane to try and answer Gadget and Santos.
Yeah, and you can see that they've decided that farm on Hanabi is more important than trying to secure the Rift Herald now that plates are about to fall off. You're not going to be able to drop that for the additional gold, so what we need is our Ryze to continue that scaling process we've already talked about. Inner side lane will be a terror as the laning phase progresses. Let's not do anything, you know, rash and continue to force around objectives. We just go back to our scaling. We always have that insurance policy. But you have to say that bringing this gold back by about 1,000 at this stage for Vega Squadron has been an improvement in that 7 to 15 minute mark where so many of these games have been decided.
Just slowing down the pace of the game a little bit now as well, which is very good from them. They're going to go for this Rift Herald. Ocean Drake up in a minute. Should be able to secure it really because Bugi is down on the bottom side of the map. We are also seeing first completed items just so we can check in to make sure we know what's up. GLP 800 finished on towards Gadget, and there is the Blade of the Brewing King on towards Betty.
And you might think, you know, risky teleport for Gadget, however, does have ultimate and flash available. Oh.
Soul Shackle's used there. ShiauC going to get caught out. Sand United coming in as well. There's the stun lock. Santos looking for the taunt. Can't quite land it onto Betty. Root used with the Chain of Corruption. And the fight onto Gadget as Betty turns it around. Gadget was not in the Spirit Refuge. Santos was unable to protect his AD carry. And this should be 2 easy kills for the Flash Wolves. Nothing that Vega Squadron could do.
And a miss execution again. I was going to say Flash as well as Ultimate and Shen means that he's very hard to dive. But however, going aggressive like that seems to be a misplay. Once again, you have numbers on the top side of the map. You're taking Rift Herald, you're going to be able to secure first turret. Why are you trying to win everywhere at once, Medic? A great play, top side, followed by a complete blunder bottom.
Just didn't need to go for it, but Gadget, he tasted blood. He could see it in his eyes. Now Hanabi trading onto Boss. The Rift Herald going to push in. Hanabi should be able to take this one down before he gets too much damage on this tower. One charge off, but then the Rift Herald will fall. Flash Wolves going to get the Ocean Drake down towards the bottom side. That's their second of the game. 15 minutes in, there's about 2,000 gold in it.
So let's take a look at this. You can see 2 members moving down. Orianna also could be on the way. All of your members top side of Summoner's Rift. You go for it because you have Stand United, but the miss execution, no taunt landing there. Members coming over the wall and Flash will style.
And AHaHaCiK's going to kick rather back here, uses the heal, still has the flash. There's the Abyssal Voyage as ShiauC joins the fight. And AHaHaCiK forced away, but does get the shockwave, I guess, out of Radha.
I think that AHaHaCiK thought there was someone in Tahm's belly there because flashed away from a very non-threatening catfish at this stage of the game. However, I like the discipline shown in that play. Okay, we've overextended again. We haven't been able to generate the pick immediately. We got the ultimate out of 2 members. I'm going to burn my flash. I'm not going to cost my team the game at only 16 minutes in. And Vega showing much more parity to the way they played in game number 1. Couple of small blunders in the bottom lane, but looking the goods in this game for.
And not letting that gold lead really snowball away from them. I think that's the big thing for them. Keeping it calm, not making too many desperate plays. Vega in a much stronger position. And this is much more like, as you say, that game 1 performance all round. Next steps, though, for both these teams, you have to think of cracking these mid lane towers. Still top tower up for the side of Vega. Flash Wolves have a bottom, but if you can break open mid, you can really start getting those deeper wards in, getting extra vision down.
You're absolutely right, and the way you want to do that is by pushing side lanes past the point of mid and gaining control of a side of the jungle. Then when you dip into Fog of War in that area, you're able to threaten the dive. It means it's very hard to defend on something that is immobile, like the Orianna, like the Syndra. So if either jungler or top laner gets control of a side lane, expect for them to try and converge towards that mid lane, open up the map and make the lanes long.
The longer the lane, the better if you want to play these 1-3-1 compositions. Question is exactly how Vega Squadron are going to be able to do it, because Flash Wolves seem to have had their number across the course of this series.
And this is what I was speaking about. The difference between Orianna and Azir is the fact that Orianna right now can catch this wave. You know, not going to be under all that much threat because jungle is playing bottom side of Summoner's Rift right now. You see where Bugi's position is. Then you have a Tahm Kench, who has ultimate now back up and available, and the ability to cheat into that Fog of War. As long as they control the bottom quadrant of the jungler on the side of the Flash Wolves, then they should be able to continue this position on the map for as long as they want.
Makes a lot of sense. It's about just the enemy not being aware of where your jungler can be and you knowing that they don't know. It's the known unknowns of Summoners.
And being able to bring the additional person.
Oh, this is, rather is quite far up here though.
Certainly is, however, trying to bait for Bugi. Also has the ability to bring both Betty and ShiauC to the play.
Santos has to stand united.
But that's only one member and a shield.
Here we go. Scatter the weak onto Rather. Dark Sovereign wants a Nomanz. Bugi waiting, and AHaHaCiK's going to jump forward, looking for the Dragon Rage. Rather flashes away. Here's the Abyssal Void. Third wall coming in as well from Flash Wolves as they take the fight. Stand United used. Bugi goes low. Void rushed in. Boss now. World Ender on that front line, and AHaHaCiK survives, gets out to the back of it. All 5 members of Flash Wolves are here. Still, Morgana on her way down. Gadget coming in. Boss with the knock-up onto Hanabi. Are they going to look for the dive? Vega could keep taking this, but the damage goes back onto Vega. They have to step back. Here comes Gadget on towards the back line, looking for that binding. Trying to connect, can't quite find it, but the tower is low here. The minion wave pushing in. Gadget's taking a lot of damage. Santa maybe looking for the taunt here as AHaHaCiK rejoins. Gadget overstepped way too far forward. The rest of his team couldn't back him up.
Medic, Vega just won a 4v5 and then Gadget walks into the remaining 4 members.
Oh, no, they did not. The Realm Warp spells the demise of Nomanz and Boss, and Vega Squadron, for a moment there was a glimmer of hope, but Flash Wolves just broke them right down.
Tragedy on Summoner's Rift, they're going to look to continue.
And AHaHaCiK caught out Hanabi, and Bugi get the kill. And head-in-hand stuff here for Vega Squadron.
And what could have been a way back into the map? We said this at best is a 4v5. Let's watch how it goes. Shockwave used on only one target. Ideal start. You can see Rather so low. No way to rejoin this fight. And check out where Gadget is. He's still walking in, but Boss and Santos do a great job of frontlining, layering their CC perfectly, able to win this one out. At this stage, collapse, go get vision control, you know, have a look at things like the jungle, like the dragon. Instead, Gadget tries to go fishing, but does not catch anything, gets caught out of position, and ultimately costs his team another 3 kills after this.
Yeah, Hanabi here with the reflex around Warp knew that Vega had split up. Quite easy for him just to follow this up, and then AHaHaCiK, of course, dies on the back end of it all.
That should have been a turret. That should have been the map opening up complete control over this dragon that's coming up in 15 minutes. This should be a Flash Wolves face checking into complete darkness with no global summoner spells apart from Betty's teleport. Instead now, they find themselves in, once again, a 3,000 gold lead and the ability to go back into this pseudo 1-3-1 comp.
And the question we asked ourselves was, where would the physical damage come from Vega? And I said, Boss, where he's behind. He's not in a position where he's really going to be impacting these fights, whereas you've got Ginsu's Rageblade, Blade of the Ruin King, finished on Varus. You've got a 4-1-1 Ryze in the top lane on the side of Flash Wolves. Any teamfight that erupts now, you have to feel goes in Flash Wolves' favor.
And I feel like that scoreline from Hanabi is going to be the most impactful area, because if they can keep Boss away from the main body of the fight, no extended damage going to be coming out of any other members of Vega Squadron. It's going to be a full burst fight. If you were able to survive or negate the initial portion, as Betty gets caught out slightly.
Binding against Tormented Soul still does a lot of work here from Gadget.
Then Betty's just going to be able to out DPS Ryze. If he lives, you know, through a good Devour, through the shields that are going to be available from Rather, then it is very easy to play the front-to-back composition on the side of Flash.
Imagine if that tower was down. Rather wouldn't be able to stand where he's standing right now, wouldn't be able to back there. The Rune Prism's going to land on towards Boss there. The chase in from ShiauC and Betty. Realm Warp there as well. Boss does have the flash, but he doesn't really have anywhere to go. Tries to flash away back towards the Flash Wolves base, but the piercing arrow won't quite connect. Boss, he's going to get chased down here by someone in the end, dies to minions, and Betty will collapse. And AHaHaCiK's going to play down towards the bottom side of the map, get something out of this for Vega Squadron.
And they look for the dive here. Vine goes wide, so it will just be the Dragon coming across. You thought with how long it took to take down Boss, there was something else available. However, now with the threat over Baron, they can't even take bot lane turret. Mid's still going to stand.
So there's no control ward on this, and there was a ward in the back of the pit, I believe, for Vega. It has just died off, so I don't think Flash Wolves will go for the Baron. Just wanted to get control over the area.
So much better play from Vega. Once again, taking the Dragon, trading. I would have liked to see Boss show a little bit more restraint, not go for that one-on-one, especially given the fact that, you know, we've already pointed out, very strong Ryze at this stage of the game. But at least they don't compound the initial mistake. They're willing to trade cross-map. They grab themselves a turret. They grab themselves the Dragon. That's honestly a positive trade right now for the Vega lineup.
You take it. It's still only 3,000 gold behind as well. They're coming into the 23-minute mark. Last time, the game was over by this point, pretty much. So Vega Squadron having a much better performance here in Game 4.
And if the buttons land onto a key member, if it is going to be Radha or Betty in these team fights that get blown up, they still have avenues to be able to take the fight. And then, better yet, if somehow they wrestle back control of a quadrant, if they get a face-checking target, they have a very nice zone control, you know, AoE style composition that they can implement.
Just need to find that proactive play once again. They did it really well earlier on, 12-minute mark, making those plays towards mid lane. Now we need to see them do it again, because otherwise Flash Wolves, you feel, are just going to continue to starve the life out of Vega. That's going to deny all of this vision, all of this experience.
Pretty interested in Gadget's build right now as well, Medicas. Hold that thought.
Jet Encryption doesn't quite connect onto Gadget. He uses the Black Shield and flashes away. Santos gets across towards the top side of this. Bugi on the chase. Binding doesn't connect either. Santos was able to hold his flash there, whereas Gadget had to use his.
Yeah, great reflexes, how we've shown to deny 2 kills going across from Gadget, being able to eat the key ultimate. And it's going to be in Morellonomicon picked up for the Morgana. Generally, you read run Ingenious Hunter. Hold that again.
Oh, Betty underneath the tower here. Scatterthorn doesn't quite hit. Just wide there. Betty able to get out with his life. The tower falls. 3 towers to 2 in favor of Flash Wolves.
And if you're Betty, you know that you have, potentially Tahm Kench around to save you, but the ability to just dodge out on key skill shots and keep himself healthy. And it is going to be, as you just pointed out, Twin Shadows up next. However,
Oblivion Orb just for the extra penetration early on, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly could be the case, especially given the fact that, there are some magic resistance items being built up. I just feel like at this stage, you really do need that Zhonya's Hourglass as well. You need the triple actives if you're going to have any presence in these team fights. Given that he's running teleport, the flanks just become so much more potent. And the ability to buy crucial moments for people like Boss and Nomanz to land their damage is also going to be very relevant in these team fights.
Like this from Vega, though, trying to find the time to get some vision control around this Baron. They do need to clear out the pit. There's still a control ward there, and one behind them at the back of their red buff. But they knew that recalls had happened from the side of Flash Wolves, and so they were able to just find the time to get in there. Boss will use the Umbral Dash across the wall here, and it's fine.
Great play from Boss this time around, showing the restraints. As soon as you get Ryze ulted on, you know that someone is heading down. Get both globals out. Sure, teleport's still available for Hanabi, but no way to keep Radha safe in this side lane now.
And AHaHaCiK not quite able to land the Sonic Wave there. I felt like Nomanz was already starting to back off, and so didn't really want to go too far.
And this is the area where you finally get to critique Flash Wolves. Hanabi in the 1v1 is going to have push priority. He's got 4 kills. He's a Ryze going towards the latter stage of the game. Why are you using Tahm Kench ult to try and take down Boss? You need it to keep your Orianna safe. Now there's no option to play the 1-3-1. Riley's going to have to group and just catch side lanes. It's going to cost you CS. But if they make a fight here work, it doesn't matter.
Jet Encryption lands onto Santos, but immediately he puts down the Spirit's Refuge, blocking out those auto attacks. Betty flashing forward. The flank is on here for an AHaHaCiK if they can find it. They're in a good position. Him and the Syndra on the side.
Yeah, far away
Radha is not with them, and AHaHaCiK's going to jump in. Boss there on the front line now. Redemption used by ShiauC. Boss into the World Ender, not quite into the Redemption passive. Nomanz there with the Unleashed Power. They take down Betty. That's one. Bugi jumps off the back line though. Gadget. Shockwave back. Will fall, and Flash Wolves find the fight. Hanabi can just open up Machine Gun Ryze onto the faces of Vega. Boss gets a counter kill, but it's going to be a full ace here by the Flash Wolves. Bugi on the chase, and AHaHaCiK not really anywhere for him to go apart from across the wall. Bugi still chasing him. It's jungler versus jungler. The prey sequel here hit, and there is the smite in the end.
Yeah, it certainly is, and Santos will survive on the back end of it all. However, it is going to be a 4-for-2 trade, and that was the perfect team fight for Vega Squadron. They had the initial pick. They landed the CC onto Betty. but this Ryze is just such a massive problem, and it could lead to a Baron.
Definitely can. When you have something like a Ryze, you can take these Barons pretty quickly. Bugi there, Santa's looking to the steal if he can get it. We've seen one steal already this best of 5, and AHaHaCiK was the one to get it, but Santa's, you can blast going in, you can go for the auto instead, just torn straight in, rather secures it. Santa's stopwatches for a second, but that's not going to delay his demise for long. Hanabi unstoppable now, 6-1-5, and Flash Wolves have taken this game by the scruff of the neck.
They certainly have, but it took longer. This is still 26 minutes into the game. Vega giving as good as they got. And I love the proactive play here. It looks like Flash Wolves are opening up. You know, this is against the flow. How do you escort your Orianna in? There's just to walk through potentially 2 members. Sure, gets the Summoner spell out, but as soon as Santos can complete this recall, can always rejoin. So Vega go aggressive. Landing a very nice combo on the back end right here, out of the Lee Sin. Lobs the crucial member of the Varus forward, and the World Ender just zoning on the back end. As you mentioned, however, as soon as Hanabi was able to join, the fight really was over. With less of a gold lead, this looks much better for the Vega lineup, and you kind of get shades of what their comp was supposed to accomplish.
Against a worse team on the day, they definitely could have taken this series. Of course, they play up against Fongvu Buffalo if they lose this game tomorrow. Taking...
Jury's still out on whether Fongvu are weaker than Flash Wolves, however.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? They look very strong against Team Liquid today. Santos with the taunt from the side. Hanabi's up towards the top lane. Unleashed Power's gonna land. Rather's down. Boss continuing to chase in here with the Stand United. They've taken the Inferno Drake. Great taunt onto Betty. Boss on the chase. Betty's down, and Vega have found the fight. They're gonna take out ShiauC as well. With the thick skin, he just about survives, but AHaHaCiK can just chase him down. Should be another kill for Vega. Hanabi is in the base. Bugi gonna use the Void Rush here onto Gadget, but Gadget can just land the binding. Tormented Slow will tick away at him. Hanabi's still pushing for that inhib up towards the top side. He will secure it. So Flash Wolves get the inhib, but they lose the fight in mid.
2 members will survive. However, they're looking to corral them, potentially cut them off. No, they will let them go. They're still Infernal Drake, a winning team fight. And potentially, you know, that overconfidence we saw when Rather was approaching mid lane turret and got picked off. This time around, you know, they hang around an objective that they obviously had no interest in fighting. That could have been a free inhibitor. Instead, they give away 3 kills.
Oh, teleport in here by Hanabi, though. Trying to catch Gadget and Nomanz. He can just 1v3 this. Gadget's done. Hanabi, he's styling on some fools right now. The taunt from Santos will land, but Rather's here for the cleanup crew. It's a double for the Ryze. Hanabi is unstoppable, indomitable, and he has won this game pretty much solo-handed for the Flash Wolves.
And now the fact that they have 2 Baron buffs remaining becomes even more relevant. With 2 members, the wave cleared dead. This is going to open up a second portion of the map. If one more member of Vega gets picked off, that could be Flash Wolves advancing to the group stage.
Vega may have taken the last fight, but as soon as Hanabi shows up, there's little they can do. Boss, Santos, and AHaHaCiK trying to defend here, but they just can't even find a flank position. Double inhibitors down now, 30 minutes in. Flash Wolves, 7,000 gold ahead. The shockwave lands onto Boss. He has the World Ender, he will regen. But even with that, Flash Wolves can just take whatever they want out of this game, and AHaHaCiK eventually realizes his hiding spot wasn't so subtle, and he will back away towards his base.
And now one more inhibitor before the whole base is opened up. Before Vega break, you can see they've had some areas where it looks like the team fight is good enough. But when you're playing against an 8-1-5 Ryze, it's nearly completed a 4th item on Summoner's Rift. The game becomes very difficult.
Yeah, pretty hard to play from this position. Of course, credit to Vega. They dominated their group 5-1 in the play-in stages. And then in game 1 against Flash Wolves, they look very strong. Even portions of this game, they've looked very strong.
No, this game has looked very good for Vega. This shows what a creative draft does to this team. Unlocks their ability to make plays.
Yeah, and AHaHaCiK just forced back a little bit there. You can't hide in the bush when the Orianna ball is there.
However, in a standard game, all right, I'm not going to talk.
Boss is caught out, ShiauC coming in, and Hanabi will go legendary. That's not really too much you can do against this Ryze right now. Vega Squadron trying to find picks where they can, but reeks of desperation for them right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I mean, this game has deteriorated quite rapidly after the Baron was taken. However, at the same time, you have to credit the ability to play the map and, you know, generate some leads. You feel like if Gadget and Boss didn't overextend in those 2 crucial moments, would be singing a different tale, as Vega was stalling out quite nicely. But now it becomes quite pedestrian. You've already got double inhib down. You're against a global composition with a very fed Ryze. You need to make a last stand somewhere, and it's probably going to have to be this inhibitor turret.
3 items on Betty as well. 3 completed on Rather. He's got the Spellbinder in his back pocket. Vega.
This is the safest Varus ever. Has a stopwatch, has himself a Tahm Kench with cleanse, as well as a QSS.
And he's got the more Malmortius in case he ever gets caught out as well. So very, very safe Varus. Very, very safe close here, you think, for the Flash Wolves. It's the final stand for Vega. Hold them here. Hot gates, but with super minions pushing in the top lane and in the mid, it's going to be a very difficult hold.
Well, this is the impressive thing. You can see that Flash Wolves still pinging out the lane waves on which they want to dive for. Not playing around the mid lane wave at all. They pinged the top lane wave that they wanted to have crash. Now we'll see it.
Teleport coming in behind. 3 members of Flash Wolves here. Rather, Betty and ShiauC maybe caught out. Bugi coming in from the side as well, but Boss lands onto Betty. The unleashed power into the stopwatch. He may be very safe, but he is still dead. Hanabi, though, and Bugi are on the Nexus towers. They don't really care about the kills. All they care about is the Nexus, and all they care about, all Flash Wolves ever care about, is making the main stage of MSI. Can they do it? He says. I'm pretty sure they can. Hanabi takes the Nexus, and Flash Wolves are going to the main stage.
So they throw Betty to the, not wolves, because they're wolves, to the other people.
To the Sharks.
To the Sharks, there we go. And unfortunately, he will fall down, but they will end up winning the series. And once Flash Wolves got into their grooves, you really saw how well they can play the map. But not only that, they do still have very impressive individual members. And that's what I feel like everyone's going to talk about. Without Caster, without Maple, without Sword Art, how can this LMS squad stand up? And you can see already they do have very good substitutes in place of those players.
They definitely do, developing as a squad game to game as well. I think the question does remain, how will they face up against a G2, against an SKT, against a Team Liquid, against an IG, but strong performances all around from the Flash Wolves, from the LMS. Of course, Vega Squadron on the other side, they'll be looking to tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they would still be able to take away pretty key things. We can't get suckered into that team fight style. We need to fight on our terms. Our setup needs to be better. And I think those tweaks in the draft need to keep coming. Standard League of Legends did not look great for the Vega lineup. But as soon as we saw things like the Karthus, like the Morgana coming in, the Vayne mid lane, there were areas that they were able to win out the map. This was a completely different game one. We were talking about the fact that they were winning both of the solo lanes in that matchup. This time around, not going to be the case. But I think that they can definitely implement things like that against the Fongvu Buffalo.
But the question is, with Fongvu Buffalo playing this sort of higher tempo, faster early game, is it going to be enough? Can they hold back the dam before it breaks?
That's the thing. I don't think the skill is the issue per se. I think it's the discipline and the ability to say no to the plays that they're looking for. If they're not flashing forward on a Morgana, playing weak side of the map with 4 members rotating towards the lane, what could have been in this game number 4? They had Rift Herald. They had a way to break open the map. They had infinite wave clear on the side of Vega. They just chose not to use it.
And I think that, like, how much can you develop in a day is always the question you come to right now, especially after what was probably a pretty demoralizing middle of the series there. How much can Vega take out of this and actually lead into tomorrow?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that's why I'm not talking about huge, like, champion pool shifts or, you know, priority shifts. It's just about, you know, playing the game on your terms and being disciplined and being calm and trusting your teammates to be able to do their jobs. And I think that if you can show that level against the team that won the LMS, there's no reason that you can't elevate a little bit further against the VCS champion.
I totally agree with you there, Spawn. Thank you very much for casting with me today. But for more on today's action, we're going to head on over to Dash and the analysts for the MSI cooldown.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Welcome to MSI Cooldown, where we look back at our first day here in the play-in knockout stage. I'm Dash, joined by Frosk and Mark Z. How you two doing after a solidly long day here of 2 best-of-5s?
It wasn't that long. I think the wild card
TL helped us out there.
Regions kind of got a little bit taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, we were expecting double 3-0s. So the fact that this most recent series even went 4 games was a bit of a surprise, and it was nice to see Vega kind of come out with that initial punch in game 1.
But we were having this conversation, and I was kind of checking online, and it seemed to be the same thing for the community. Like, that 3-1 looked more convincing than the 3-0 from TL. Because I felt like when Flash Wolves did find their ground, when they were ahead, that they were absolutely just slapping Vega around.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, you lost game 1 to a Vayne mid with a Karthus that was kind of getting flexed around, all this weird stuff. Like, okay, you lose a game to that, and it still took a long time, and the enemy team got all the objectives, and you were still putting up a good fight. And then you steamroll them the next 3 games, and it's like, well, who cared what happened in game 1? That was an anomaly.
Yeah, in particular, that 3rd game of the series was an absolute smashing. This time around, as Spawn mentioned, there were maybe a couple opportunities for Vega, you know, with the Rift Herald and whatnot, but ultimately, they weren't able to realize any of those advantages within the game, and it was another solid one for Flash Wolves.
And now it's just the measuring measuring stick. You know, just because Vega fell down here, they get another opportunity against the VCS. So I'm curious, like VCS and LMS play a very similar high tempo, very skirmish, fight heavy style. So Vega theoretically got a really good feel for like kind of the tempo of the series tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, in general, though, we got to talk about Flash Wolves in the context of moving on, right? They are a very explosive team, I think, as we have seen here. But in particular, I want to talk about Betty in the bot lane because there was a lot of focus around the bot lane for this squad and him as a carry.
We were saying Gadget was a player to watch, and he was a reason to watch the series because Betty destroyed him.
Yes.
And it was one of those things that, like, once the pick started stabilizing the bot lane, Betty really took over. His Ezreal was phenomenal. Was one of the main reasons that game 1 was even close, despite losing on it. Game 2 goes back to it, crushes on it, and then kind of just keeps running away from the series from there. Other people did step up at different times, but a lot of this did feel like it was keyed off of Betty.
Yeah, low econ ADC. Normally you don't see Betty as dominant in the lane phase, at least not domestically. Yeah, he can pull it out if he has a good matchup, but I think this was really just muscling and flexing on an opponent that wasn't ready, because usually it's just in these 5v5s, these 3v3s that Betty really starts to shine.
Right. And I think coupled with Betty's individual performance, of course, you have to look at his lane partner in ShiauC. Yes, in part the shot caller, main shot caller for the team, but just looking at the champion picks, almost all of them in service of helping Betty specifically either get ahead in the lane or provide him with an immense amount of protection for the team fights.
Yeah, I mean, especially this third game. The Nautilus pick was absolutely disgusting, getting tons of kills in lane and then 1v2ing after that. Yeah, Betty was on Kai'Sa, and that's great, but it was really the ShiauC show for game 3.
And if you turn off the nameplates, that guy looks like Sword Art. These are very common picks or a very common playstyle that Sword Art would also bring back to the Flash Wolves. So yeah, the golden era has come and gone, but you can still see some of the fingerprints left over of such like a historic organization on what is such a young roster. When Hanabi and Betty went to the Flash Wolves to MSI, they were rookies.
And I think, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the funny thing was, after having such a great performance in games 1 through 3, it felt like Vega was like, we're gonna start killing Betty in game 4. And they ended up killing him 5 times, I believe it was.
Right.
But, usually they were losing the rest of the game as a result. So Betty felt like he kind of tilted them off the rift.
Yeah, very much so. And while Betty definitely stepped up here today, if we're going to talk about any concern, any small point of concern personnel-wise for Flash Wolves, I think we would point our fingers towards Bugi. I mean, you look at Flash Wolves historically, and you're looking at a player like Kai'Sa, right? As an absolute star jungler. So already big shoes for someone like Bugi to fill, and he is very much a rookie, in particular on the international stage. And we saw a couple of indicators there of maybe some nerves throughout the series today.
I'm gonna say it looked like calm problems to me. You know, that Elder Dragon in particular really stands out. The fact that he went for the smite steal, when if he had gone for the team fight, it probably would have been a completely different story. I think it's just a very kind of solo queue mentality. This is an experience issue that the more time that this guy has with this roster, I think he'll start to fall in line.
And I think you could see that he had good lane ganks and a lot of the times set Betty up for some of those early kills and stuff like that. But when you come to the more complex calls, like you're saying, what do you do around like a stalled out Elder Dragon or at a Baron buff and those kinds of things? It does feel like that's where he struggles. Even I think it was like the last game he lost to Baron randomly. Like those are the kinds of things that as you move into the closer series coming up in the group stage, you need a very confident jungler because he's going to go up against so many who are used to being in those situations that he does have a little bit of leveling up to go.
Right, and to be fair, you don't run into those situations nearly as often as you practice a lane gank, right? You just simply don't get to a 41-minute Elder Drake that often on the competitive level, and in particular on the international stage. That said, what is your guys' feelings around Flash Wolves as a whole moving towards the group stage? How they might perform or maybe stack up against some of the teams awaiting them?
I think that they look pretty good for a best-of-1 format where they do have that kind of explosive ability to end a game against teams that, maybe they're better than you in a best-of-5, but if you get that kind of 2 to 3K gold lead, you can end that game very quickly. That's what you want to see in a best-of-1 format. It is a little concerning how much of their advantages, well, I shouldn't say concerning, but a question mark still about how many of these advantages they can get because there was so much like, 2v2 kills, and you just slam your opponent. Like,
right.
Is that going to work versus Doublelift and Core JJ and, Perks and all the other people that you're going to be going up against in the bot lane? It's one of those things where you're saying, yeah, you dominated your opponent today, but you probably won't be dominating the upcoming games. So how are you going to get those 2K advantages to close the games?
In the same way that it's like really hard to draw a lot of concrete ideas from the TL series, I think the same thing should be said about the Flash Wolves. Yeah, it's impressive. Yeah, you can feel good about the momentum. Maybe fans like get on their side. But ultimately, because of the caliber of opponent, you're not going to get those types of leads. It's not like Flash Wolves are going to come into IG and just blast them in the lane phase and be able to close out. And so, unfortunately, we haven't seen on an international stage with this iteration of Flash Wolves, how do they play from behind? How do they play from even footing? Because if it's the same play style of, hey guys, let's try to skirmish and see what happens, you're doing that into a tournament with so much better, stronger, more experienced teams at exactly that play style.
And I think it was interesting when you said, Betty was a larger carry in this series than he sometimes is and got more resources than he typically does. Maybe that was just them kind of keying into what was working this series and just being like, all right, Betty's carrying, let's just put more eggs in his basket. But I want to see more out of Hanabi and how he interacts with the team, whereas for a lot of this series, he was kind of on an island and doing very well. But can he go up and they fight more of these 2v2s in the top lane? That does feel like we're in the meta for.
Going to take a moment to hear from the team themselves. For more on how Flash Wolves won the series, let's check in with Riv and their jungler.
Thank you very much. I am joined by Bugi, start over. Yep. Thank you very much. I am joined by Flash Wolves, Bugi, and G-Sun for translating. Thank you so much for joining us. Flash Wolves taking down Vega Squadron 3-1. Bugi, my first question for you. Games 1 and 2 seemed quite difficult, but games 3 and 4 were absolutely amazing. What kicked in for the team?
우선 승리 정말 축하드리고요. 사실 1경기, 2경기는 조금 힘들어 보였는데 3, 4경기는 굉장히 압도적으로 승리하셨어요. 어떤 변화가 왔을까요?
첫 게임은 제가 첫 국제대회다 보니까 너무 떨려서 손이 너무 떨려서 좀 힘들어했고 첫판 끝나니까 긴장 풀려서 그다음부터는 우리가 하는 플레이 했던 플레이 원하는 대로 했던 것 같아요.
So this is my first experience at international stage. So I was really nervous. My hands were shaking, but I got used to the stage on game 2, so I was able to pull some of the plays that I used to play in LMS.
And it kind of goes into my second question. You joined Flash Wolves at the beginning of this season. As a jungler, what do you bring to this historic and storied team of Flash Wolves?
네, 이제 그러면 올해 이제 플래시 로브즈에 조인하셨는데 그럼 이제 좀 역사가 깊고 이런 강팀에 조인하면서 정글러로서 어떤 플레이를 보여주고 계신가요?
일단 우리 팀원이 너무 잘해서 일단 받쳐주는 걸로 일단 연습을 하고 있어요.
I mean, all my teammates are such a great players. I'm just supporting them.
That's very nice to say. And I have to ask you, now you have SKT, IG, G2, and Team Liquid coming up. Who are you most excited to play against?
네, 이제 그룹 스테이지 가면 SKT, IG, G2, 팀 리퀴드를 만날 수 있는데 가장 기대되는 팀이 어딘가요?
SKT인 것 같아요. 일단 롤드컵보다 우승이 힘든다는 LCK에서 우승하고 올라와서 제일 기대가 돼요. 얼마나 잘할지.
So obviously SK Telecom because he heard that winning LCK is even tougher than winning Worlds, so he's really looking forward to it.
Well, the play looks on point. Flash Wolves are looking awesome. Bugi, thank you very much. Ji-sun, thank you for translating. And we're going to throw back to the State Farm analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Riv. Looking ahead to that SKT matchup. But in a broader sense, the caliber of opponent that awaits these teams in the group stage, when you talk about IG defending world champions, SKT, and the likes of G2, I mean, those are some scary opponents.
I mean, personally, MSI is my favorite tournament because it's the Champions Tournament. We cut away the fat. It's just the lean competition. There's no third place that's boosting in.
But we need C9. We're North America.
Yeah,
they never win the title, but they do well at Worlds and International, so we need Worlds.
Yeah, well, we'll see how the new revamped Team Liquid does in the group stages, but if it doesn't go well, there'll be people calling for C9 instead. Earlier today, we saw those LCS champions Team Liquid sweep PVB to secure a spot in the group stage. A good start to their MSI run.
Yeah, but we were talking earlier about how good it looked compared to the two different series. And this one was actually a closer series. If you only watched the previous one, you would not know that Feng Vu actually hung in there very closely. The fights were back and forth throughout the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, and then Team Liquid's superior mid-game team fighting would very quickly close the game out. But for those first 15 minutes, it was really scrappy like this, where it's just back and forth fights, and you're not quite sure who's coming out ahead. And, you know, it was pretty standard drafts, not at all like the crazy stuff we were seeing.
And I don't want to take anything away from Fangbu Buffaloes because I did like some of the looks that they gave today. Again, in some of those instances in these fights, it looked good for a second. But I also want the community to kind of like gut check themselves. Like take a step back and say, yeah, you know, Flash Wolves, they look explosive, they look hot. It looks like they're just smashing their opponent. They're clearly better. Team Liquid aren't that type of team. That's not their play style. Any victory that they have isn't going to look like that. So was this game controlled? Did they play around the correct windows and their power spikes and the win conditions? And for me, most of the time, yeah, I think they're a low variance type of team. They try to go for the safer play. It's gonna be a bit slower. And I think that came out of this series, so I'm not feeling so bad about Liquid.
All right, a North American fan who has watched them all season is used to seeing these kinds of wins, where it's a little scrappy earlier for Team Liquid, maybe they fall 1 or 2K goal behind, and then they crush you. Right. And so, like, it was very in line with that. And I think, you know, some of it for Fangbu fans, like, you would have liked to have seen your team play around their win conditions a little bit better. That second game in particular, having such a strong top side of the map and taking forever to try and exploit it, those are the kinds of things that moving forward in this tournament, especially for tomorrow, Fangbu's going to want to clean up.
And Frost, it was mentioned that we didn't see as crazy picks in this first series, TL versus PvB, as we did perhaps in the Flash Wolves series. But I do want to talk about the way that TL approached this best of 5, because there were questions around, you know, would Impact go back to some of those tanks who have received small buffs in the lead up to the tournament, or would he kind of choose to go the way of the rest of the top laners in the tournament and expand that champion pool into more carries? If we're to use those 3 games as an indicator, TL is looking to adapt to the tournament meta and attempt to play that.
Or at least have the viable option to do so. I also really like the pivot of taking the Akali and Jinsen showcasing that on the international stage. I like the fact that when Sonateric wasn't give it to him, that they were fine to just play the champion paired up with the Tristana. So I like the different looks that I got from TL, and I'm not really concerned for them. I prefer when they play around their bot lane, it's like gangplank in the top lane, but if I don't get that every time, I'm not like immediately slamming down the panic button for TL's top lane.
Yeah, I think this was, you know, that's kind of how the series was for me. I'm not slamming the panic button, but I'm not necessarily thrilled as, you know, the kind of jaded North American fan.
Who hurt you guys?
TL did, just last year.
NA fans are just like,
That's who. I'll tell you who.
unless you guys are like 20-minute perfect game, they're just
We
like
just-
no sweat. You're like,
I
oh,
feel
it's
like
doomed.
they can't hurt us anymore if we downplay all of the expectations.
Frost had a great point at the top of the day about how much teams struggled in play-ins at Worlds, G2 and C9, and then made semifinals of Worlds. And so it's not super indicative, but it's just not like, I feel great.
I'll do you one even better. I actually think it makes the team stronger because, okay, there's a bit abstract.
A little bit of struggle.
Yeah, let's go.
No.
Iron sharpens iron.
Stay with me, because the
Okay.
thing is I think a huge problem is caliber of competition around you. And the reality is that Korea can scrim China, China can scrim Korea. NA and EU, we don't have that advantage. You're basically sitting there on an island, you go off to international competition. The level up that you see from Western teams when they attend a tournament like Worlds that is so long because they get access to the boot camp, because they get access to those scrims, and how quickly they develop is massive. A team that goes into play-ins has much longer to do so. Now, will it count for MSI because it's a shorter tournament? Maybe not as much, but definitely for Worlds. So when you see your teams going to play-ins, I'd be like, thank God, we've got extra scrim time. This is basically playing a whole nother split. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm happy they're in play-ins. And I think, you know, about the whole, did it inspire a ton of confidence? You know, like, it's what we've seen out of Team Liquid. We know they're a great mid-game team fighting team. Never really that lane focused. But I think the concerning part is not necessarily what we've learned this series, but like heading into the best of ones, which often get very crazy. Group stages of international competition, it's almost always the most exciting part because there's tons of upsets and things that happen. And they don't seem like a team that is going to do as well in a format like that. They're always a little bit more of that best of 5 team, and they play pretty standard and make smart adaptations, but they rarely surprise you with a draft pick.
Right.
And so in a best of 1 series, you know, that is something that you would be a little concerned about.
Isn't you guys' region best of 1?
It is best of 1, but they also lost.
But TL's not, would not be considered the best of 1 team in the region.
Definitely.
C9 would probably be largely considered the team that, given a game against any other team in the world, has the highest likelihood of taking that
even
game,
TSM this
something
last
like
season
that.
where they played a lot weirder. The point overall is just that, like, if it is PvB that makes it through and it is, you know, Flash Wolves, you know, well, they already got
it is
through,
Flash
but, like,
Wolves and TL, yeah.
Like, those teams are both very explosive in the early game, and like one of those games that PvB played today could have been won if they were a little bit better in the mid game. And those are the kinds of games in the best of one that haunt you. When you drop that one game you shouldn't have dropped and now you're not getting through because it's a super tight field.
Right. I think for me, as we talk about the 3-0, that scoreline does not necessarily inspire confidence. I think what does inspire confidence more than anything is what Riv heard from Kane at the top of the day around the things that they had worked on, which were specifically expanding champion pools, becoming more aggressive as a team, looking to close things out. I mean, it was a relatively quick series in terms of average game time, so that when they did have leads, they were able to close it out quicker than they typically were within our region domestically. And beyond that, it was evident to me, based on the Akali play and the 3 unique champions in the top lane for Impact, that they are putting time and effort into expanding those champion pools. Now the question is just, have they leveled those things up to a degree that they can actually be competitive against the top regions in the world?
And I mean, the same thing's kind of true for Flash Wolves for me as well, where it's just like, yeah, Team Liquid, there's still some question marks, but they looked pretty good. For Flash Wolves, it's going to be a really tight battle, I think, against Team Liquid for probably that 4th seed in group stage. I don't think either of the emerging region teams that we've seen play in the play-in so far have a chance of getting out. And I think G2 is really good. I think IG and SKT are really good. And so who's going to join them? And I think Flash Wolves looked, like we said, like the better, more dominant series so far. And we'll get a better gauge of how that relates when the two
teams they beat play
tomorrow.
I mean, I feel like I need to give you guys like a pep talk to build you up.
Did you not think Flash Wolves looked good?
No, but I'm just like, you remember that TL was a single tiebreaker game last time from making
which
group stage.
But
it was, they had all
so let me then just ask it to you this way, Frost. Based on the 2 series we saw today, which one inspired more confidence in you? Which team do you think is better, Flash Wolves or Team Liquid, coming out of our 2 series today?
I'm going to say TL.
So you are going to say, okay, well then that's fine.
Did you expect something else?
Well, I mean, because earlier we were talking about how the series for Flash Wolves, even though 3-1, felt more dominant.
Yes, but I think the caliber of competition was very different, and it was a bad stylistic matchup. Now,
fair enough.
The thing is specifically, it's looking at, again, recognizing your power windows. I saw the same exact thing from Flash Wolves every single time, and I feel like I saw the best version of Flash Wolves. Yeah, maybe they can play around Hanabi a bit more, but you basically got what you thought you were going to get. Betty is popping off, Hanabi's playing a carry, and then there seems to be communication issues around the jungle. TL, I don't think I saw the best version of them, and what I did see, I was like, that's not bad. This is probably what I expected, but I think there's a higher ceiling here, which is why I lean towards them.
All right, fair. I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, player skill for Team Liquid, I think, is definitely in their favor. I think you can have some concerns about how does it work in a best of 1, but they look like the better team. Flash Wolves, I still think I really liked what I saw just in terms of decisiveness and being able to close out those kinds of games that are super important in a best of 1.
Right, and of course we could get into the weeds about how they match up against each individual team awaiting them in the group stages. We won't do
That's
that.
a show for another time.
Exactly. So after today's results, Team Liquid and Flash Wolves will be advancing to the group stage, joining Invictus Gaming, SKT, and G2 Esports. Tomorrow, Fongvu, Buffalo, and Vega Squadron return to the stage to fight for that last spot, with the VCS champions looking to bounce back in front of the home crowd. Let's preview that final best of 5 here in the play-in knockout stage. As both teams suffered a loss, one of them will get to go through and challenge as an emerging region against the other 5.
I think we kind of got the light preview of it today because, again, LMS and VCS share a very similar playstyle between Flash Wolves and Fongvu Buffalo, and you saw that Vega Squadron really did get caught off guard when things were going fast. That said, Null had a really poor series, in my opinion, today, made a lot of crucial mistakes, so Nomanz is definitely a guy that can punish that, and I kind of think that Vega, maybe their time is out. Maybe they've shown all of their tricks, and if VCS is paying attention, probably should ban that Karthus, and you just watch that team roll over.
Yeah, I think we were seeing what else would come out of that bag of tricks, and nothing else really came out of it. And I think Big Koro has actually been having a pretty good tournament with Pallet, and so when you saw the bot lane of Gadget just getting destroyed over and over and over again, it kind of raises a concern where this seems to be one of the strong points for Fongvu that they're going to have to overtake in the series.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to do it with cheesier picks that you've already shown.
I would never expect Vega to get their Game 1 draft from this series again. Possibly an iteration of that Game 2 draft where maybe they can shore up a couple of the misgivings of it. But even then, that's one game of a best of 5. So the both of you would call the favorites in this matchup Fongfu Buffalo. We did say they were in the better of the two groups anyway when it came to the play-ins.
Yep, definitely would give it to Fongfu. I think the fact that they can mechanically go toe-to-toe with one of the top major, or the best region.
The best region in the world?
Yeah, best region in the world. Best team from a major region is what I meant to say. Best team from a major region. The fact that they didn't get outclassed mechanically, and it was just purely mid-game team fighting, is a good sign when you go up against the LCL representatives.
Well, that series comes tomorrow. Game 1 starts at 3 a.m. Pacific time. That's a change from today. That is 12 p.m. Central European Summer Time. So be sure to tune in for the countdown 30 minutes before all of that, and action begins. Now for myself, the casters, the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for more of MSI 2019.
A lot of these international events do come down to, do you rise to the occasion or do you kind of crumble under that pressure?
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, the first best of 5 of the day. Team Liquid versus Fongfu Buffalo. Winner of this series will advance to the MSI main stage. Jensen unable to connect on the ult, Null still alive. Double kill coming in for BigKoro. He's popping up the back line, that's gonna be a triple. He's looking for a little bit more, but BigKoro will go down. Jensen finding the kill. Null though on cleanup duty. Core JJ, the last man standing, the ace for Fongfu Buffalo. The stun comes in, the stolen Sejuani turning the fight. The double for BigKoro now wants to continue, but Impact does so much damage on the front line. The Tahm comes out to save the day, but it is not enough. The shutdown coming through. Double it, looking to clean up.
Oh, make some time.
Yeah, go left. Oh, nice. Oh, just nice. Going mid.
Jen's gonna lead forward, they're gonna try to take down Null, double ups as well. Zeros is ulting, but none of the members he needs to hit. They've gone gold, and the Cosmic Radiance is everything that they needed. BigKoro knockback. Double continue to clean up. Him and Jensen running through the enemy team. One more reset on the jump. TL dominate PvP on home soil, and they will qualify for the MSI main stage.
FlashWolves take on Vega for a position in the MSI main stage. Gets stunned up, looking for the Void Rush as well. He'll go on, but already he's dead. Rather taken out by Sanchez. Nomanz continues to push forward here. The final hour, maybe the final shot into the hearts of FlashWolves in this game. Boss looking to rejoin the fight. Betty gets the kill onto an AHaHaCiK. Nomanz caught out as well. FlashWolves find the double. Vega Squadron caught out in their own jungle. Bugi flashes forward with the knockup, and it's all Betty all the time. Rather steals away the unstoppable on top. Betty's on the back line. Gadget's caught out. Gadget trying to do what he can, but Betty just on a rampage. Surima's shuffle comes out, and FlashWolves continue the fight. And AHaHaCiK has to flash away. This is just devastation. This isn't even funny as we see Nomanz trying to slide onto the back line, but it's all FlashWolves. There's nothing you can do. Nomanz there with the unleashed power. They take down Betty. That's one. Bugi jumps on the back line though. Gadget. Shockwave back will fall, and FlashWolves find the fight. Hanabi can just open up machine gun Ryze onto the faces of Vega. By Hanabi though. Trying to catch Gadget and Nomanz. He can just 1v3 this. Gadget's done. Hanabi, he's styling on some fools right now. Can they do it? He says, I'm pretty sure they can. Hanabi takes the Nexus, and FlashWolves are going to the main stage. Yeah, I guess you can shrouds and you swing your sword around. It's like, I'm scything.
I also wish we had the camera on you and that is the outtake.